What is going on, everybody? Jesse here, and welcome back to another episode of the inventory system. In this episode, we're going to start building the functionality for the drag and drop operation. We're just going to set it up here to where we get just the basic functionality. If I come over here and pick up an item in the world, you can see we got red berries. And when I right click and drag the berries, you can see that we can move it around. And when I let go of the mouse button, technically it drops it. We're not handling that situation in this video. We're just going to set up the functionality to be able to actually just grab the item and be able to move it around the world. All right, so with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy. I want to say thank you to the patrons that you see listed on the screen here. They make episodes like this possible. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to my Patreon, over to my Buy Me a Coffee page, and consider earning some rewards and some benefits. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can head over to my Discord channel and join the conversation over there. All right, so let's just go ahead and get started on our drag and drop functionality here. Generally speaking, the actual operations of drag and drop within Unreal is actually a pretty easy process. Where the complexity comes in is what you actually do with that dragged and dropped item. That's where everything kind of comes in, and we'll handle that in the next couple episodes after this one. This one, we're just going to set up the basic functionality to be able to perform the operation so that we can set up our special functions. So we're going to start here. We're in our WBP inventory slot. So we're going to come over here to the functions, and where it says override, let's select that, and let's come down here to on mouse button down. Let's go ahead and select that, and we're going to be presented with this. So now this is what we're going to do to decide on which mouse button we want to use to detect a drag. Now, you can do traditionally with like the left mouse button, you can use that. However, because we have here a use button that we're going to be able to use and click to be able to use the item, because of that, the left mouse button actually won't be detected in this current setup to be detectable for the drag operation. So we can't use that. If you want to use your left mouse button, there's a couple things you could probably do, one of which would probably be the easiest, I think. I haven't fully tested all the other options, but you could just kind of create your own behavior to know the difference between wanting to use something. You disable that. You don't use the actual use button in here. Instead of the use button, you would just make this, something static that will detect when you actually use your left mouse button. Because the drag and drop operation, what it does is when you click your mouse button, it doesn't, the way it detects it is by, as soon as, if you're holding the mouse button down, if you move your mouse 1 pixel, it automatically detects the drag operation. So you can do that. But what I'm going to do for mine is I'm just going to go detect drag if pressed. Go ahead and select that function, and here I'm just going to left click this, and then I'm going to right click the mouse. I'm going to use the right mouse button to drag my items around the inventory. Again, there's other ways you can go about doing this, but because we are using the button, you won't be able to use the left mouse button in its current configuration. So go ahead and drag off your mouse event, plug that into the pointer event, and then we're going to take the return value and we're going to punch it out right there. So that's pretty much it. Now, every time we use our mouse right button, keep it held down, and we drag the mouse even just 1 pixel, it will detect a drag in the widget. Let's go ahead and now let's select override here in the functions, and now let's select on drag detected. So in here, the functionality in here is actually going to be pretty easy. Let's go ahead and disconnect the execution pin. Now this is just going to kind of set it up. What are we going to do when that detection is actually seen? What we need to do, we need to come out here. Let's grab our get item, and off of here, let's just go ahead and break this. And what we need off of here, let's grab the item. We just want to make sure that we're not dragging the base item, because if it's the base item, let's type base item. Where is it? BP base item. We want to make sure it's not that, because if it is that, then that means that it's an empty slot, right? Because that's the only thing that should be a BP base item is an empty slot. So we don't want to do any drag work if that is detected, if that's what we're trying to drag with. Okay, so select the condition there, and if that's true, then we don't want to do anything, right? the operation here, and I'll explain this operation in a second, but we want to leave this blank, which would be null. We want to leave this empty. So if something happens, just leave this empty. What this return operation is, the operation, if you hover over it, is going to tell you it is a drag and drop operation. Okay, so we're going to get into that in just a second here. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that now in our next step. So a drag and drop operation, if we open up our content browser here and inside our widget folder, I'm going to go ahead and right click. Let's select blueprint class. We're going to, in the search field under all classes, I'm going to type drag drop operation right there. Go ahead and select that. All right, and I'm going to call mine WBP underscore slot drag operation. All right, hit enter, and we're not going to do anything with this yet, but we got this created. Okay, so now when we come back in here into our graph, let's go ahead and right click and let's go create widget, and we'll set this up in just a second. We're going to set that right there. Right click again and let's go create drag and drop operation. All right, so now this is going to be very similar to this as far as its apparent goes. Okay, so now the class that we want to do is actually that one that we just did. So let's do WBP, and it's going to come up here, slot drag operation. Okay, so that's a class that we want to create here. The payload is going to be the actual item. If you hover over it, it's going to tell you the payload of the drag operation. This is usually the object that you want to pass along as a drag data. So technically, this is going to be the slot that we're going to drag around. We want to be able to put that information into this payload. So that's how we're going to pass around the items we're going to be dragging. Okay, and the reason why we created this is because you see here we got default drag visual, and it tells you there that the drag visual is a widget to display when we're dragging the item. Normally people create a new widget to represent the drag, the temporary drag. So essentially we want to create a duplicate of the item slot. Okay, we don't want to actually give it the current item slot. We're just going to create a new one, and we're going to pass that along as the default drag visual. So in order for us to do that, I'm going to open up the content browser here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just create a duplicate of our original inventory slot, the one we're currently working in. We're going to make a duplicate of this. So let's just go ahead and right click on it and create copy. And I'm going to just name this actually WBP underscore dragged inventory slot. This system can kind of get a little bit confusing because a lot of things kind of seem redundant. So you want to be able to give fairly descriptive names of your blueprints. So that way, because as you dig into this and you start creating the functionality of what we're going to do with the dragged item, things can just really kind of start to get confusing. So make sure you understand exactly which blueprint is which, because all of these, the dragged inventory slot, the original inventory slot, the slot drag operation, these are names that we're going to have to call on several times when we're actually doing the functionality for dropping the items in different slots and things of that nature. So make sure you name them, make sure you understand exactly which is which. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the new dragged inventory slot that we just created. And for whatever reason, there's compile errors. That's okay. We're going to come back over here into the graph. We're actually going to delete pretty much everything in here. Okay, let's delete that except for the construct. We don't want to delete any of the information inside the construct. Let's just kind of leave that as it is. All right, but we're going to come over here. We're going to delete the owning HUD variable. We want to leave the items variable. Okay, we don't want to delete that. We're going to need that because we need to actually, this is setting up the visuals right here for us in the construct. That's why we're keeping this. This whole point of this blueprint is to create visuals here for the drag and drop operation. Okay, so if we compile it now, we don't have any errors. If you've got any functions in here, go ahead and delete that. So we got on mouse button down. Let's go ahead and delete that. We got on drag detected because we just created these in the original blueprint that we duplicated. We don't need them in here. Delete them. And really, you could come in here, if we select class and go into the search and we type tick. Actually, it's not going to be in there. It's going to be in class defaults. You see tick frequencies. It's set to auto. It's going to auto detect if you're using the tick in this. If you are, then it'll automatically do it. You could really do this to never. Set this to never, so that way we make sure that this doesn't ever tick, because we don't need that. We're just using this for visual representation when we're dragging our items around. Okay, so you can set that to never. You can leave it to auto if you want, but if you set it to never, you know for sure that this is never going to tick, because this particular blueprint we don't ever want or need to tick. Okay, so that's it. We're going to leave this just as it is at this point. Make sure you compile it and save it. Go ahead and close this out. Now that we got that created, let's go up here now to the create widget blueprint. And from here, we're going to select our new dragged inventory slot. All right. And now it's going to call for the item because we have that exposed on spawn. So we're going to take the item out of here. We're going to get it and we're just going to plug it right into there. So we still want to pass around this information because this is what's going to give it the information of what the visuals look like. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug this into the false, get this set up, and then from here, let's plug in the execution with this as well. So with this return value now, let's go ahead and plug that into the default drag visual. And then right click, and we're gonna select self. We're gonna pass around because this particular slot, whichever one it is that's being selected, is gonna activate this on drag detected. So we wanna pass our self into the payload. Now remember, this payload, we'll come across this a little bit later in the next couple episodes, but the payload, this is just a generic, you can see right there, it's just a generic object reference. Okay, so at some point we're going to have to cast it, or we'll have to do some sort of interface call or whatever we want to do to be able to do that, but the information will still go across, but it's just being put in there as a regular actor, which is fine. Originally I had this set up to where I was passing in a new variable into here, but there's no need for that. Let's just pass around, because if you put that in here, it's going to create a hard reference, and we don't need that. Let's just pass it as an object so we have as little references, pointers to references as possible. All right, and then now let's go ahead and we're just going to duplicate this return node, and this is a drag and drop operation. So now we can plug that into there. So now when the on drag is detected, it's going to run through here. It's going to set our visuals for us, and it's going to pass this new drag and drop operation onto the rest of the functionality. So when we call things like on drop or on drop cancels or any of the other drag operations, drag functionality, it's going to know, it's going to pull this operation right here, which is our drag and drop operation blueprint. With that, now the drag operation is technically completed, and we can go ahead and start dragging around on our inventory slots. So if we press play here, come out now, if we walk up and we pick up an item, you see we got the red berries here in the inventory. If I press right click and start to drag, there we go. We get the item and we can drag it around, let go of the mouse button, and it technically is dropping it at this stage. Okay, so yeah, so we pass it around. A couple things I want you to note, because we're going to set this up right now. Now you can see me dragging it around. There's no visual feedback of which slot we're currently hovered over. I want to have some sort of visual feedback when we do this. All right, so you can see here when we hover over this, and the other thing I want to fix too, you can see as I'm hovering over these right now, we have the visual feedback of the blue bar, blue box around each slot. I don't want that for empty slots. We're going to fix that as well. I only want it to show that for slots that have items in it, and then when we're dragging it around, then we'll have the blue box around everything as we drag it around. Okay, and the reason why this isn't having a blue box right now is because when we're dragging and dropping, when we're dragging an item around, the widget functionality underneath, like the use button and all that, that's disabled. Everything underneath it, it's only focusing on the actual drag itself. So we need to tell it, we need to identify when we're actually over something. Okay, so let's go ahead and back out of here. And then from here, let's go ahead and head back out to the event graph, to the main event graph. And first thing I'm going to do, just because this is going to be the easiest thing probably for us to set up, is I wanted to disable the blue box around the empty slots when we're not dragging and dropping around, okay? So up here in our event construct, we're going to come up here and in the false branch here, at the very end, I'm just going to grab our use button. And then from here, I'm going to go set background color. Okay. And let's plug this in. And the color I want to set it to, actually, I don't really want to set a color. What I want to do is just take the alpha and drop it all the way to 0. So this is going to make it look like that the button doesn't work. Clicking on it, you're not going to be able to see any of the styles on here. With the background not there, none of the styles of the button are going to show up. So which means when you press it, you're not going to get that press style or the hover style or anything like that. So let me show you here. If we just compile it and then press play, come in here and let's just pick something up here. You can see now there's no hover effect there, but we get the hover effect here. So again, we still don't have any of the effects here. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that now. Back here in the event graph, one of the things I actually want to do, I debated on whether I want to do this or not. I'm going to create a interface for this, as well as what we're going to end up doing here for the drag to notify things. You really shouldn't set and get variables on other blueprints. You should make a function. I'm sure you've heard of getter and setter functions. You don't want to directly affect another blueprint or another class's variables directly. You want to call a function or something and have that blueprint or class do it to itself, right? So this is really kind of bad programming right here. I just did it because of time constraints. The last one, I knew we were going to kind of change it. But I'm going to create a new blueprint interface. So let's go ahead and open up our content browser, head up here to our interface folder, and let's go ahead and select blueprints and come down here again to blueprint interface. And I'm going to call mine BI underscore inventory widgets. Okay. So this one I'm going to use solely for, right now we're only going to have one function in here, and foreseeably down the road we'll probably have a couple more in here, but this is going to prevent us, as you're going to see in just a little bit, from having to do a cast, a multiple cast, which can cause problems in your game. So this, even if we only ever keep this as one function, then it's still going to save us some issues and some potential lag spikes down the road. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up now. Go ahead and dock it up here, and the new function I'm going to create, I'm going to call update slot under cursor. It's a little bit verbose, but that way we at least know what it's going to do, right? So we want it to update the slot that is under the cursor. So essentially it's not updating the slot itself, it's giving us the information of the slot that is under the cursor. So name it what you will. I'm going to name it that because I know what it is. I'm going to add a new input to this. I'm going to name this slot. And for its type, of course, I'm going to do the WBP inventory slot object reference. Okay, let's go ahead and compile it and save it. And that's all we need from this one. So let's go ahead and close this back down. And let's go ahead and head over now back to the inventory slot. So with this, I'm going to actually delete just the getter here, or delete the set. And let's right click and go, actually let's just drag off the owning HUD and go update slot under cursor. We want to send the message. Let's plug this in. And the message we want to send, or the slot we want to send, is ourself. So now we're calling the owning HUD, the variable we have in here, and we're setting ourself. So there's that. So now on mouse leave, what we need to do is essentially the same thing. Let's just go ahead and duplicate this. Make sure you plug in the owning HUD into the target, and we want to set null. We don't want to set anything here. All right. And so now in order for this to work, we need to go back to the primary HUD and we need to tell it to implement this interface. So go to primary HUD, and inside here now, let's go to our class settings. And under interfaces, select add, and we want to do BI underscore inventory widgets. So do that. Now we got the interfaces functionality up here. Double click update slot under cursor. And with this, now let's go ahead and grab our over slot. We want to set it. And what do we want to set? We want to set the slot that we're passing through. So now we will set this using this update function. So let's head back to the inventory slot. All right, so now that we're back in here, I'm just going to take these on mouse enter and on mouse leave, and I'm going to just create a comment. Set that aside. And then now what we need to do is come back up here to the functions, override. We're going to override on drag enter. Okay. And override on drag leave. All right. So we want both these functions right here. They're actually events because there's no return node on these. So whenever you make a function that doesn't have a return node, it just creates an event. So the event we need to do here now on enter, let's go ahead and from the drag operation, let's do the same thing we just did. Let's go update slot under cursor, send a message. Now we haven't implemented this yet. We're gonna have to go back to our drag and drop operation. We're gonna have it implement this function. So we'll do that in just a minute. So the slot we want to pass is a reference to self. Take that now, let's plug that in. And really this bottom, the leave is going to be fairly identical. What we're going to do now at the end of this function though, after we set this cursor underneath, because as I mentioned earlier, when you're dragging a slot around, it doesn't recognize the slots underneath. So the typical hover styles and things like that you would get when you're not dragging an operation, those aren't seen underneath. So we need to essentially set the style ourselves as we're going over it. Okay. So let's grab our use button because that's what we're going to set the style to. Grab the use button and we're going to take the style, get style. Okay. And from the get style, let's drag off of this and just break it. And from here, really the only thing we're going to have to pull off of for this is the normal. Okay. So drag off of the normal and type in set brush resource to texture. Okay. And what texture do we want to set? We want to set our hover button. Okay. So button hover. And then again, off of the normal, let's drag off of here and I'm going to put in a reroute node. And then drag off of here and do set members in slate brush. All right. And if we have this highlighted, you come over here and you see everything within this struct that we can choose. All right. What we want to do is we actually want the tint. Select the tint and we're going to get this new struct right here. So I'm going to right click on here and I'm going to split this struct pane. So the tint color that we want to specify, we actually want this to be white and we don't need to set any specific color in here. Really this up here in the top, we don't have to set, we don't even have to split this, but make sure that you have it enabled because if you don't have it enabled, it's not going to set this in here. We need to make sure that this tint color is white. Okay. Now the color is not going to be white, but it's going to tell the slate brush that it's going to be visible, okay? Because we're going to turn this actually alpha in the leave. You'll see that in just a couple minutes, okay? And one last thing we're going to do, I'm going to pull off this use button again. And I'm going to get the use button. And I'm actually going to go set background color, okay? Now we have to do this because even though we're setting it up here, if we don't end up enabling and disabling this as we go back through, that means when you drop the item, the slot that you're currently over won't lose its style for it won't lose the box that we put around it. Okay, so let's go ahead and select the color. We actually want the color to be white. Select OK. And that's pretty much it for the enter functionality right now. Okay, and this is going to be relatively identical on the bottom. So let's just go ahead and select these three functions and let's just duplicate them down here. Control D and plug them in. This one needs to be in here too. We don't need this self, so let's go ahead and disable that because we're leaving, so we need to clear the slot information. All right, plug this in. And the slot texture, we want to leave this blank, so let's go ahead and do none. Set member brush, now we need to pull off of here, plug that in here, and same thing here, we need to come off of the normal and we need to plug it into the brush. But here in the set slate brush, now select this tint color and just come down here and let's move the alpha all the way to 0. So now we're gonna disable this tint color on this. And then on the set background, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the execution pin and we're gonna do a branch on here. All right, so let's hook up this branch. What we need to check is we need to actually check, grab our item here. If the item within the slot, and let's go ahead and break this. If the item within the slot is equal to the base item class, base item, okay, and let's plug this into the branch. If it is the base item, then we want to set its background to alpha 0. Okay, if it's not this, in other words, it's not an empty slot, we don't want to set this functionality. Okay, we only want to set this if it's an empty slot. All right, so straighten that up there a little bit and set that. And again, pull off of the use button because that's what we're setting here. I'm just going to kind of clean this up a little bit. And there we go. We got that functionality set in. Plug in the operation here and compile it. So now if we go back into our widgets folder here, into our slot drag operation, and in here we need to implement, go into class settings and add the BI inventory widget. Take the function here. And now we need to create a new variable. Go ahead and select the plus sign there. And I'm going to name mine under drag slot. And of course, we're going to make this of type WBP inventory item slot, object reference. And drag this out. And this is what we're going to set. We're going to set this up. What we're passing in the slot is what we're going to set there. Compile that. So now if we come back out here, everything should work. Cross our fingers. Come in here, and if we pick this item up, right click, we come over here, and there we go. You can see we now have the box around. And if we drop the item, see the box is still there because now we drop the item, but it doesn't know what to do with it right here, right? So if we come out here and we drag a new item over, it's going to clear the box because we're setting that functionality. You drop outside of the box and nothing happens. So there we go. So we want to be able to fix that though, right? So how do we fix that? That's actually a pretty easy fix. We already got the functionality in here. Let's head back over to the inventory slot. So what we need to do, well, here we're leaving, right? Here's where we're clearing all that information. So let's just right click in here and I'm going to go custom, if I can spell, custom event. And I'm going to call this clear drag brushes. I'm just going to take this, I'm going to plug it in to the set brush. We don't need to set the inventory slot right there, or the update slot functionality. We just need to set it in here to set the style of this, okay? So now, how do we still know when to call this? Where do we call this at? In here under functions, we've got on drop. Now this is going to get a little bit different, right? We'll talk about this a little bit more in the next episodes. We start doing the functionality, but this has an on drop function. All right. If we come over here real quick, we take a look at the slot drag operation and we do override functions on here. You're going to see there's only 4 functions we can override: drag, cancel, dragged, drop, and of course the update slot, because we created the, it's part of the blueprint interface. But generally there's only 3 that you can override. So it's got its own drop functionality. So this is just an event, but this does the same thing as the inventory slot. So we can, and I originally did when I made this, put all my code inside of the on drop here, but that's not very object oriented, right? So what this here with the slot, what this really should be done, what we should really do with this only is set the functionality that this needs when the item is dropped, and then run the functions for the actual drop on the slot operation. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about that more in the next episode. But for brevity on this one, all we need to do is we need to tell the system, did the drop system succeed? Okay, so that's what this return value is here. Return value, true or false. Did the on drop succeed? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't succeed when you drop outside of the inventory window. If something doesn't succeed, if you set a set of conditions in here and return false, what this is going to do, this is actually going to trigger the function on drag cancel, the one you see right here. So there is functionality you could do here, and we're probably most likely this is how we're going to end up doing dropping items into the world. When you drag it out of the inventory window and you just let go of it, we want to be able to throw an item out in the world. That just kind of tells you, you know, like any normal inventory system you might see, you drag it out of your inventory box and you let go of it and it just throws it out into the world. So that's probably what we're going to do with that, how we're going to do that. But that's what this does. So when you pass true, you tell it it succeeds. So when it succeeds, that is when the on drop for the slot drag operation, that's when that drop is called. If you don't pass this as true, that drop is never called. Okay, so just to be able to clear, I'm just going to go clear drag brushes. This is all we're going to set up in here for right now is this. So that way our brushes will clear for us. We're going to set this to true, compile it and save it. Now if we come back out here and pick up an item, drag, we get all the boxes, we drag it over here, and there we go, the brush cleared. So that's what we have for this one, and I think that should about do it and wrap it up for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do me a favor, go down, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and think about subscribing while you're down there. Hit that notification button, get notified every time we put out a new video. Come on over, join the Discord, join the conversation, join the community. Look forward to seeing you over there, and until the next episode, peace.